We are back with week 3 rankings, tier list, running backs and wide receivers. And we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to start with running backs this week. We started with wide receivers last week. We start with running backs now. Have the tier list here made up already, kind of label the tiers as we go and have some discussion. So, as always, joined by my brother, Brian, but we got our number 1 RB overall. I think I'm 1 for 2 on these. I think Saquon was RB1 overall, and I think I had him in the top 5 week 1. And then Alvin Kamara was RB1 last week. I did not have him. So, but yeah, I mean, it's the usual guys. It's Bijan, Achane. That's a different one. Saquon, Alvin Kamara, and Jordan Mason. So no Breece Hall. Kind of interesting having Achane in here because as I move myself. Having Bijan in here because he's actually not been that great to start the year. If you look at his numbers and things like that, he's RB16 overall. So, and he hasn't put up more than 15 half PPR points. But any argument here, Jordan Mason was an interesting one to add. I just think, 20 plus carries, 100 plus yards each of the last 2 weeks. Debo's out. Kittle is potentially out. They might want to run the ball more. So, any disagreements with that first tier of number 1 overall?
No, not really. Obviously, Achane gets a big boost from Mostert and Tua missing. Mostert has already been ruled out. Is that right? Or is he just
don't know, actually. Let's see.
Yeah. But, yeah, definitely, like, his usage, how they're using him is definitely – it says he's pessimistic to play. So, yeah, he's interesting. Yeah, the Niners running backs always has that chance, and plus Debo's not going to be there. So Mason should just carry the full workload.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, you can't argue with the other guys. I think Bijan, like you said, it has been a little disappointing. But, I mean, his usage is, like, spot on. He's getting over 20 opportunities a game involved in the passing game, and we'll see if we can get a good game out of him, or a great game, I guess, is what we need.
Just need a touchdown. He has 111 and 122 total yards each of the first 2 weeks. Both those weeks he had 4 and 5 catches. That's exactly what you're looking for. 120 yards with 4 or 5 catches. You just need the touchdown. So he hasn't had one yet. But man, he looks so good when he runs. And then the next tier is a staple. It's our no-brainer tier. We're not thinking about these guys. We're starting them. It's Jahmyr Gibbs. It's Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, Derrick Henry I still have in there. Although, maybe he hasn't been as good as we expected. We can get to that in just a second. James Conner, Josh Jacobs, if you're going to get 30 touches, you're kind of a no-brainer start. And then I put Charbonnet in here, even though he's not as good as Kenneth Walker, but he's going to be the main guy. He's going to get probably 15 carries and potential for 5-6 catches as well. So that's my no-brainer tier. Any guys you would kind of leave out here or anyone you would add that I don't have in here? Go ahead and give me your thoughts on that tier.
Yeah. I think you nailed it with Derrick Henry. We know he's not going to be involved in the passing game. 3 targets in 2 games. That's probably even more than what we would have thought. Maybe not, because it's not even a crazy number, but definitely, like, he hasn't been great, basically right around 12 half PPR points in week 1 with a touchdown. It's like, that's not good, It's only playing about 50% of the snaps, so he might be moving down into the 15 touch. Oh, I don't see that one here. Well, because he's not the 1A or 1B. He is the guy, but we need a little more positive game script, I guess, which is kind of what we saw last year with the Titans. He just wasn't, he's not going to be on the field as much as we would like in neutral / negative game script, so he's starting to get concerning for sure. Still looks good.
Yeah, and it's funny because you mentioned last year, and it's like, well, yeah, and he was still RB8 in total points.
Yeah.
Like, now points per game, he was much lower. He's RB15, but I mean, still, like you would take that. And those are, if you're going to be top 15 in points per game and top 10 in total points, you're a no brainer. So yeah, I agree. Like the touchdowns have kind of saved him each of the last 2 weeks. We haven't seen the big game, but hopefully we get that soon. And then, yeah, I mean, all the other guys I think are pretty easy and to have in there. The next group are kind of like, these are guys that I am starting as well, but I do want to highlight them just because they have been disappointing, in my opinion, to start the year. It's Rashad White, it's Kyron Williams, and Travis Etienne. So those guys to me, like they were both, all three of those guys were drafted second round, maybe third round for Rashad White. But Rashad White finished as like a top 5 guy last year. He's RB31 to start the year. I know he got a little banged up last week, but he just hasn't been good rushing the ball and didn't catch any passes, although Baker didn't really throw that much. Kyron has been better than that. He's been RB19 per game, but the guy was RB2 overall in points per game last year. And that Rams team has just been decimated by injuries in the offensive line. And then Etienne. Etienne is RB23 on the year and hasn't necessarily looked good and efficient. So again, like I'm personally going to be starting these guys given where I've drafted them, and they haven't been complete terrible busts, but they've been disappointing for sure. Is there any one of those that you're like most concerned about, or you're not really concerned about any of them?
No, well, definitely concerned about Kyron, given that offensive line is like non-existent now. Like, have they lost 4 out of their 5 starters?
Yeah, they should be getting some back soon.
Yeah, it's just, man, yeah, like you said, like that team is just getting ravaged, and like, we just talked about Derrick Henry. He probably belongs kind of in this category. We're still seeing like the high usage from Kyron Williams. He's involved in the passing game, and probably that's going to get a boost, honestly, this week coming up. Like, they need to figure something out. And Stafford's not going to have a lot of time to throw, so expect a few more dump offs to Kyron. I don't know how effective that's going to be. Jags look terrible in general, so it's kind of a similar situation without the injuries. So yeah, it's definitely concerning. And yeah, White, it's just, I wonder how much Chris Godwin working out of the slot is affecting his efficiency, or just this last game though. It's still, we're working with extremely small sample sizes. 6 for 75 receiving in game 1 for Rashad White, and only 1 target and 1 catch for 5 yards last week. It's like, well, that's not going to get it done. He's averaging around 2 yards per carry. It's like, man, we thought it was bad.
Kind of who he is.
Well, yeah, we thought it was bad the last 2 seasons where he's averaging 3.5, between 3.5 and 4 yards per carry. Not quite 4, but we'll call it 3 3/4. But yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, I agree there. And I guess Kyron and Etienne, like in my mind, you drafted those guys to be like top 5 guys, and they're not even close. So that's why I put them. And you can also put Bijan in that disappointing tier, to be honest. So the next 2 are also guys that they would go in the no-brainer starting. But I wanted to highlight them because they're playing way better than we expected, and you got incredible value on these guys. And if you have either one of them on your team, you're probably doing pretty well. Tony Pollard's RB13 to start the year. Kind of looks much better than Spears. Week 1 was kind of dominating the snaps compared to Spears. It kind of balanced out in week 2, but then Spears got hurt. At least before Spears got hurt, they're actually giving him, Tajay Spears, a little bit more of a run. And then Brian Robinson is RB12, and he looks awesome. Like, I've never been a big Brian Robinson fan. Obviously, I've been wrong on that. He's catching the ball, 4 catches in 2 games. He's efficient, at least last week running the ball. So he was playing against the Giants, but they want to feed him. So I just wanted to highlight those guys. Like they're starters for me, but they have been much better than expected. So you can add anything to that if you want, or do you believe that both these guys are going to potentially be like top 15 guys if healthy all year?
Yeah, I mean, if Pollard maintains that role, and Robinson, like we knew he was going to be basically at least the 2 down back. So it is good to see him, or I guess what do I call that? Early downs back, the 2 down back. He's the runner. Yeah, but I mean, it's good to see him a little targeted. The running quarterback definitely helps running back efficiency, so yeah, just good things in general. The nice thing is his usage is there, so yeah, not a whole lot to say there.
Yep, and again, they're basically starters at this point. Like you just keep riding the wave, especially given there's been some disappointing running backs and stuff. So, you kind of mentioned it. There's no 15 plus touch guy. I kind of like combined a couple tiers. It's like 15 plus touch, 1A, 1B, kind of players. Both. I think all 3 of these guys are kind of 1A, 1B. It's David Montgomery who, like without the touchdown, it potentially could be in trouble. But he just is like the best bet in the entire NFL to get a touchdown because he had like 2 or 3 games last year where he didn't get a touchdown. He has his 2 touchdowns to start the year. So it kind of saved him his last week. Aaron Jones is, Ty Chandler's, I think, playing maybe a little bit more than we expected, or maybe we shouldn't have expected. We should have expected this, but he's still getting his, depending on the game script, but he should still get his 15 touches. Week 1, he did that with 2 catches. Week 2, he basically did that, but with 5 catches. So all these guys are probably starting as well. And then there's J.K. Dobbins, who didn't even lead the Chargers in carries last week. He had 17. Gus Edwards had 18. But Dobbins has been much better at this point. He's averaging 9.9 yards per carry. So, I mean, all these guys, I think we're starting. I don't know if there's too much to say about these or – again, like, are you just kind of starting until you don't see it anymore for a couple of weeks, or any concerns at all?
No, I mean, the obvious concern is with Dobbins. It's like, is he going to stay healthy? But he's healthy now, so you start him. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, he's been awesome. And again, like if you could trade high on him, I might think of doing that because that injury history is real, and he's RB4 right now. Like that's crazy to me. I was completely out on Dobbins, and once again, like you're gonna be wrong sometimes when you're out on injury guys, and it's gonna kind of hurt. But then you think about all the times that you're right, and when you avoid injury guys, and it's like, okay, I can live with being wrong sometimes, right? So
I in one of my best ball leagues, one of my best ball dynasty leagues, someone offered me him during the draft for my 3rd round pick, which was kind of like a mid 3rd. And I was like, no way, not doing it.
Rookie pick.
Yeah, rookie pick. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have done it. You couldn't You couldn't give the guy away for free 2 months ago. Like I don't think you made the wrong choice. Like as the result.
That was before he went to the Chargers, and I think Henry might have already been on the Ravens too. So it was like, nah, like I'm not doing this. Yeah,
for sure.
Hindsight.
There's someone who posted on the Facebook group, like that dynasty group, like, oh, should I trade Dobbins? He got like a 2026 second and Bucky Irving. I was like, honestly, I'm fine with that. Like that's what I said, and I told him other people are not going to be fine with that, and sure as hell, like. Other people are like, nah, you should have waited. And I'm just kind of like, man, if he gets hurt, his value is 0 again. So,
yeah. Might as well just cash out. You've been holding him for long enough. But
yeah,
I guess it kind of depends on if you're a contender or not. Getting the pick in Bucky is definitely the move to do if you're rebuilding or, if your team sucks. All right.
Mhm.
Enough dynasty.
Yeah. So the next tier is like, I love the matchup for these guys, but they aren't very exciting. I mean, DeAndre Swift has been god awful, and they just don't give him the ball. He's been RB40 to start the year. Dante Foreman and Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford seemed to dominate that backfield week one, and then Dante Foreman took a decent amount. I mean, he had more carries than Ford. Ford played more, but I love their matchups here against the Giants. The Bears, by the way, the Bears are playing the Colts, so I like that matchup for them. Zach Moss is playing the Commanders. Again, he hasn't really done too much. He's been okay. RB28 to start the year. He's had a solid, an above average week, a good week at 13.1 points, and then a bad week or, close to bust week at 5.2. But I love the matchup against the Commanders. And then Zamir White, it kind of feels like if you're going to get any value from these guys, this is the week to do it. Zamir White has been awful. RB47 to start the year, plays the Panthers. Are you going to play the matchup here for a lot of these guys? Are you going to bench most of these guys? Like, I think Zach Moss, most people are still going to be playing because, at least has produced a little bit. But I don't know. Like any of these guys like that, if they didn't have the good matchup, you'd be benching any of them. You're kind of interested because of the matchup, or you just want to avoid all of them?
Well, Zamir White definitely starting him more or less because of the matchup. He's just hasn't done anything yet, and after this week might be a good time to try and get rid of him, for those people that don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Swift, God, just the Bears in general, they just look anemic. He's playing enough snaps and he's getting some opportunity, mm-hmm. It's just not very valuable. He's just not doing anything with it. So it's kind of a bummer. It was good to see him with 5 targets last week. But we just got word that Keenan Allen is out again. Mm-hmm. So that could be good for him. They kind of work in that same part of the field. Mm-hmm. I think Swift is kind of like the really hard one for me. Well, him and Foreman. I don't know if I'm really ready to just jump in at all with him. Yeah. So those are the two. Swift and Foreman kind of worry me the mm-hmm. most for kind of different reasons. Cleveland's doing a good job with. We knew their defense was good in general. Yeah. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, all these guys, I don't love starting them, but if I have to, compared to the kind of the group 2 tiers down, I might lean them just because of the matchup. So the next tier are guys they got the usage, and normally that's what we want, right? You got the usage, but that's really all they got because they're not doing anything with it. Chuba Hubbard, week 1 didn't really have it. Week 2 kind of went back to what we were expecting. He had 14 touches with 4 catches, but 76 total yards. Not terrible with 4 catches, but he has played over 50%, almost 60% last week. Najee Harris, he's had, I think, 20 touches each of the first. He had 21 touches week 1 and 18 touches week 2. Hasn't been over 80 total yards, and no touchdowns. It's just, that's not good at all, especially because he's not getting any catches. And then Javonte kind of took back over after week 1, that role that, again, we expected from him. Did get 5 catches for 48 yards, so 65 total yards with 5 catches. That's at least something. But again, all these guys just not producing numbers, and they're not really winning you weeks. They're not maybe losing you weeks, but they're not doing anything to help you win. So I don't know. Are you going to continue to start guys like Najee and Javonte if or are you going to basically start most of the people above them? I guess looking at the matchup guys, would you kind of start them over Najee and Javonte, or are you going to still play the touch game? And they're getting the touches, and that's half the battle.
Chuba, hopefully he'll be better with Andy Dalton coming in. While you were talking, I just got an update saying that Herbert suffered a high ankle sprain on Sunday, and I knew he was like not practicing. So I wonder what that does for Najee, who's playing against him this week. Like, is he going to see even more opportunity? You know, I mean, he's already getting 17 and 20 carries, so it's like I don't know how much more that can go up, but that could be positive game script for the Steelers, which is weird. But I don't know. Like, I don't really want to start these guys. I already benched Javonte Williams like after 1 week, and I was just like, he's definitely like, I need to see this guy do something. But I mean, just the Broncos in general have just looked terrible. And they're going against Tampa Bay this week, so I think Najee is who I'd feel the best about starting. It would basically be in the order that you got him: Najee, Chuba, then Javonte. But I like the guys in the next tier. Actually, a lot of these guys better. Well, maybe not a lot of them, but I like a few of them better.
Yeah, it's the desperation flex is what I call them. I feel like you got to be a little desperate to be starting these guys. Devin Singletary, it's mostly because he's going against the Browns, and that just could be an absolute shit show of like shutting down the entire offense. If he had a good matchup like he did last week, I'm fine with starting Devin Singletary. I'd have him, even above like the good matchup tiers, because we saw him in a good matchup against the Commanders. He had 95 total yards. He had a touchdown. He had a catch. Like, that's what we expect from Devin Singletary. Carson Steele is going to be an interesting one, and Samaje Perine. We should put them together. Don't really know what that's going to look like. Kareem Hunt is going to be on the practice squad. He's not going to be elevated, so it is going to be those two guys. I don't know. Like, I still feel like you got to be a little desperate to be starting them, because, like, I think it's going to be a good split between them, and you're really going to need a touchdown or like 5-6 catches from Samaje Perine, in my opinion. Austin Eckler, sneaky, like you put out his stats for the entire year, and he'd be on pace for 450 rushing yards, 850 receiving yards with 60 catches, essentially 190 points in PPR. Over the last few years, 190 points means you're like a top 24 running back. And that's without any touchdowns, by the way. He's going to get 3-4 touchdowns at least. So kind of sneaky, like you don't expect like he's not doing anything, but it's like, well, he has 100 receiving yards basically his first 2 games and 7 catches, and he's going to get the ball 6, 7, 8 times on the ground. So Jaylen Warren, want to see him, just produce and come back. I think he will get to that level of like, I feel more comfortable about starting him. Just want to see it. Gus Edwards, like I mentioned, got 18 carries, actually out-carried Dobbins. And then Tajay Spears was kind of taken over. Like, they were using him more and before he got hurt. I don't know exactly his status. Hopefully he's going to play. But yeah, you said you like some of these guys. You want to touch on maybe 1 or 2 of them that you like over the other ones?
Not really. No, I do like the Kansas City guys. Given the news with Kareem Hunt's not going to be elevated,
who would you choose?
It's definitely half PPR. I think I'd lean Steele, honestly. He did have some work in the passing game not last week, but in college. So we know he can catch. They haven't used him in that capacity. I mean, they had Pacheco, so I think he's going to slot into that role a little bit more, but definitely it could definitely be a lot more Perine. And they can run through the air, the Chiefs can, but I mean, Perine, like, he just hasn't done anything yet, and they're only using him like in very specific situations. But I think his usage is definitely going to go up a bit this week. But I just wonder how much. Like, he's definitely a guy I'd rather start Steele over him.
Okay, yeah. Some of these guys are definitely format dependent. Spears, Eckler, Warren, Perine for sure. Right, PPR guys, in my opinion, and Steele, Singletary, and Gus Edwards, like standard or half PPR. So, all of them, I wouldn't be surprised if they had like top 24, top 15 weeks. Maybe top 15, I'd be a little bit surprised, but top 24 weeks and kind of usable at the flex position. But it's just like your team might be down bad, and there's a lot of teams that are down bad. So these last two tiers don't really need to talk too much about them. They're just, the first one is I'm definitely stashing these guys and not letting them on the waiver wire. It's Bucky Irving and Ty Chandler. They're both getting some work. They both look good, and I think they could be really good if the starter gets hurt. And then I have the I guessed here. Like, I guess I'll hold on to these guys if I have to because they're getting some work. It's the Cowboys guys who are just kind of, they're making each other irrelevant, essentially. Chase Brown is a clear backup, and I'm not sure what he'll look like even when he takes over the role. And then Jaleel McLaughlin looked good week one in terms of the role, but did nothing with his role last week. So, yeah, I think unless you want to say something, we can switch over to the receivers here.
No, not especially. Like, I like the last category, I guess. Like,
yeah, I guess so.
They're kind of in that stash category, I guess.
But also, like, if there's a better player out there in the way, like they're being dropped. I'm not. It's kind of like that. So, yeah, I agree.
Sorry, I'm a little distracted. I'm running through my dynasty leagues real quick to see if I need to pick up Easton Stick, which is actually kind of surprising that, given that Heineke was basically he was not even the QB3. Well, I guess he was the emergency quarterback, so the QB3 for the Chargers last week said coach's decision. So
yeah. The wide receivers here, number one overall, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson. And I have Nico Collins in here, man. Nico Collins. I never expected Nico Collins to be what he is. Even when he was like kind of middle of last year, I was like, okay, like he's going to be good, but like he's like legit good, top 10 wide receiver good, So I have him in here. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we really need to spend too much time on those guys. They're studs you're starting. So we'll just move on to the no-brainers. Rashee Rice, Devontae Smith, Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Ayuk, Godwin, Neighbors, and Metcalf. So Ayuk's still in there, even though he hasn't done much to start the year. It's more because Debo and Kittle might be out. So, like, this is the game where we're expecting him to really put up the numbers, hopefully. And then Godwin's a new addition here. I think, like, he was one of our favorite targets in draft season, and he's proving it. Like, 16 targets, 8 targets each of the last 2 weeks. He's catching them all because they're in the slot and they're easier targets. He has a touchdown each of the last 2 weeks, but even without the touchdowns, 8 for 83, 7 for 117. Like, you don't even need the touchdowns to be good. So that's what I want to see. I think he's a no-brainer. Do you agree with Godwin moving up to the no-brainer tier?
Yeah. I mean, until we don't see it, and it'd probably even take a couple of games of him like not being involved at all, like for me to like really believe it. Yeah, I mean, they did what they said they were going to do. And I know we talked about him in the preseason as far as like, like kind of where his value came from in previous years is he was just like very heavily targeted. And that's exactly what we're seeing, So, yeah,
he's been awesome.
Yeah,
he's been absolutely awesome. All the other guys, like, we know we're starting them. We saw the Marvin Harrison Jr. breakout game. Like, Devontae Adams had a big game and a solid game. Devontae Smith's going to be potentially number one overall as long as A.J. Brown's out. So, I think these next two guys I'm also starting. They would be in the no-brainer tier, but I do want to highlight them. Just like we need to have a conversation here. We'll start with Evans. I just want to point out again, I'm starting Evans. I'm not saying you should bench him. Only 6 targets each of for the first 2 weeks. Six targets, 5 catches, 61 yards, 2 touchdowns in week 1. Those 2 touchdowns definitely, made us ignore anything else. And then against the Lions, 6 targets, 3 catches, 42 yards, no touchdowns. So I don't know, with the emergence of Godwin, we saw Jalen McMillan make a couple plays here and there. Rashad White's still going to be involved in the passing game. The tight ends are going to catch something. So, like, I'm not saying we should be worried about him, but, do you think he's going to maybe get back to what he was last year? Or do you think, like, with Godwin's kind of Godwin kind of emerging here as being kind of the target hog here. That it's like Mike Evans, we might have to kind of temper those top 10 expectations a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think he will do what he did last year, finishing 5 overall at wide receiver, but that's a very, very like lofty thing to expect anyways, you know. Like you said, like you're definitely still starting him. Like he's always been like a touchdown guy. Not that he needs the touchdown in order to like be relevant, you know, like. But yeah, definitely. I did like Godwin in the preseason. I know that doesn't help anybody now, like more than Evans, just because he was going basically 3 rounds later.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're kind of seeing that play out. But you know, him and Baker, they have good chemistry. Like you're going to get those deep shots to Evans, and I'd say he has a 50-50 shot to take a long one to the house every week. So yeah, you're still I think you're still happy enough with him. It sucks that he's not living up to his value where you drafted him, but you can't go back in time. You just got to move forward.
Yeah, and again, like even if he didn't have the 2 touchdown game, I'd still be starting him. But he did have the 2 touchdown game, so it's like he had one really good game and one, you know, not so great game. But you know, if he has a big game, I always think about it like this too. Like if he has a huge game in week 3, well, what if that was just a different order? What if that was a huge game week 1, you know, a good game and a bad game, you know, the next 2 weeks? We wouldn't be questioning it. So like if it all happens within the first 3 weeks, like you got to think about it like that too. How would I be feeling if this happened week 1? And that shouldn't really change too much of your opinion. So Olave, you know, Saints are the top scoring team in the NFL. Each of the first 2 weeks, they have over 90 points. I know they're not throwing too much. I'm not saying I'm going to bench Olave, but what we have is one bust game and one good game, but not great. He had 4 for 81. So the volume's not there. The touchdowns aren't coming. Everyone's like, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. The only reason I keep saying I'm worried is because we haven't seen it from Godwin or from Olave yet, with Derek Carr especially. You know, we talked about it last week after we recorded a video. He hasn't had a top 5 week, right? So like he's in his career, his first 3 years, like we just haven't seen it. And like you keep telling me, no, don't worry, and I'm going to keep worrying as long as it doesn't happen. You know, it keeps not happening. So I don't know. I don't know if there's anything to add to that too much, or if you're a little bit worried, or is it going to sway you from not starting him at all, or anything like that?
I think one more week of this, and I'm definitely starting to hit the panic button and seeing what I can get for him in a trade, you know, on name value alone. You know, he's kind of reminding me a little bit of the other receivers that went in his area of the draft last year. You know, it was the 3 backup guys. You know, it was Smith, Waddle, and why am I forgetting the third one?
For what?
For the because he was basically going like at the end of the second round. Oh, it was Higgins. No, it was the wide receiver 2s on like good offenses is where basically Chris Olave got drafted this year, and we kind of had similar, not necessarily similar stat lines, but they were very disappointing for where you drafted him. You know, so yeah, I mean he's still out there. The part of the problem is, and I think you pointed this out, is just the Saints are doing really well without him. You know, it's like they've scored 90 points in 2 weeks, and they haven't even needed him really to do anything. So it's just like, man, it's not a good look.
Yeah, and Shaheed's been way better. You know, like, so I know Carr, again, he's only thrown the ball 39 times over the first 2 weeks. I get it, but yeah, we'll see. Again, you're not going to be benching him though, because you drafted him to be a starter, and it's not like he's a complete bust. So, next guys are the I put them in the high floor. And again, this is mostly about week 3, but also kind of season long. Hopefully, high floor, high upside. So DJ Moore, you know, Keenan Allen being out, he is going to be the main target. We've seen 5 for 36 and 6 for 53. So those are solid floor games. Now we need to see the upside game. If it comes this week, you know, we're not too worried. Jameson Williams, like he's getting the targets. He, we saw the boom game in week 1. He followed it up with 5 for 79 on 11 targets. Week 2 with no touchdown. Zay Flowers is getting fed targets, so I have him in this high floor, high ceiling as well. He has 10 and 11 targets each of the first 2 weeks, 7 for 91 and a touchdown last week. Drake London's an interesting one because he has had the low floor game in week 1, but I just think I kind of throw that out the window a little bit with all right, this is the season. About halfway through the week 2 in their game against the Eagles, all right, this is what we should be seeing. He did get saved by that touchdown, so he might be an interesting one to talk about next week. And then Calvin Ridley I put in here too because he's just beginning absolutely fed targets, and looks like Hopkins is old and a little bit decrepit, and we're seeing 3 for 50 for Ridley and then 4 for 77 and a touchdown. So who do you disagree with the most here of having a high floor? Because I think all these guys, you agree they have potential high upside. Who do you disagree in terms of having a high floor?
Yeah, I mean, they're basically all the wide receiver ones on their team outside of Jameson, but we've seen he's on a great offense and they're using him. So that's why he's in here. I think Drake London kind of falls into that Chris Olave category where it's like, man, I think we need to have the conversation kind of now because, like you mentioned, like he got a touchdown on essentially the last play of the game, and that kind of saved his week. So I am worried, but I mean, the dude's playing every snap, and the obvious number 1 on his team. Just the team hasn't really got cooking yet. Like Cousins looked a little better this last week in that win over Philly. So I think there's good things to come for Drake London, but I think he's basically him and Chris Olave because they were getting drafted essentially back to back for kind of different reasons, and they're both kind of having similar seasons so far.
Yeah, for sure. I got the three wide receiver, 12 team guys. Rashid Shaheed to me belongs in here. He's been awesome, and you can say he's boom bust, but if he keeps booming, you just keep starting him. Stephon Diggs will be interesting to revisit this after this week because I'm a little bit concerned. I just don't know. He kind of needs a big target volume, in my opinion, to be really good. He's been 6 for 33, 4 for 37. He did catch 2 touchdowns week 1. But, I'll still start him for now, but it is concerning. JSN, I don't know how he can go away from, the whatever 16 targets he got. This is what we were waiting to see from JSN, 12 for 117. I'm starting him. I'm going to chase that. Maybe I'm a little bit biased. I put Pickens in here as well. I think just the aspect, we know what he's capable of in terms of his boom games, and I generally want to start that for my wide receiver 3. So, anything on? Do you agree with Shaheed should be promoted all the way up here?
I mean, he's looked like the better guy so far in New Orleans, but his target share is still concerning. He's getting he's getting the deep targets kind of a thing, he's averaging over 24 yards per catch. It's I don't know how sustainable that is. So, I mean, the ceiling is definitely there, but I think it'll only take one game of him not producing, and then he'll basically be thrown into the boom bust category. JSN, I feel like he kind of almost belongs in that category as well. Just because those are the 2 games we've seen. We've seen a boom and a bust. And the boom wasn't even crazy, but there was no touchdown. The usage was great. I think we're like you were saying, it's this is kind of what we were waiting on seeing with him. All these guys are a little concerning for sure. The Diggs one really scares me, but I guess we'll just have to see. He's not necessarily needed to be that possession guy like he was for the last few years in Buffalo. They've got they've got good guys around him. So if he might be that touchdown or bust kind of player from now on.
Yeah. Yeah, but something to point out with Shaheed, yeah, it is only 9 targets, but that is 23% of Derek Carr's targets. So if he gets that, then he's like, to me, you have to start him, it just because it's going to go up if he has to pass more theoretically. So boom bust guys in the next category here. It's Tank Dell, Xavier Worthy. Tank Dell hasn't boomed yet. Xavier Worthy has. Jalen Waddle I throw in here now because of the quarterback issues. And then Brian Thomas, he's kind of been playing. He's not getting a lot of targets. Either he catches a touchdown or he catches a big pass like he did last week, a 66-yarder. But 2 for 94 is like the ultimate boom bust, 4 for 47 and a touchdown. So we don't have to spend too much time on here if you don't want, but anyone, what do you think of Waddle with Skylar Thompson? Do you kind of agree he should be in this boom bust here?
Yeah, I mean, man, that's the real concern, right? I mean, we're not going to see Tua until after the bye week, most likely. Or I think he actually has to miss that many games, right? Or shit.
Yeah, he's on IR.
Is it 4 weeks or is it 4 games? We have, I
4
think,
games.
Like we have this conversation. Yeah, okay, so we're not going to see him until week 8. Like I think Waddle's going to suffer a lot, but yeah, I don't think he's not the type of player that you can sit really.
No.
Yeah, again, like I feel like all of these guys are kind of like, well, not all of them. I don't know. Worthy is a little concerning too. Like, well, sorry. It's not that he's concerning, but it's just like we want to see more usage in general. But yeah, boom bust. I mean, that's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to sit some of them like Dink Dell because he's going to go off. But 2 more guys we need to have a conversation about part 2, and they're not so much locks as starters anymore. It's Amari Cooper and it's Michael Pittman. The concerns with Amari Cooper is like, I'm actually not super concerned about him just because he has 17 targets over the first 2 weeks. They just turned into nothing, like absolutely nothing. And he's catching like 30% of his passes, which is not going to last. Michael Pittman is a little bit more concerning, kind of the same boat in that sense of like, well, he has 15 targets. He's catching like 45% of them because of Anthony Richardson. I'm concerned about Pittman because I don't think he's going to get deep touchdowns. I don't think he's going to get touchdowns around the goal line. I think that's going to go to Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. So is there one of these guys you're more concerned about? Are you still starting them? Or are you really trying to start other guys over these 2 and trying to put them on the bench until you see something?
I mean, I do feel better about Amari Cooper than I do Michael Pittman, kind of echoing what you said. Yeah, it's tough, man, because, Pittman was or has been that possession receiver with not a lot of touchdown upside, and he's just not getting thrown good enough targets to really haul more than half of them in. So It's definitely concerning. I'd like to bench Michael Pittman this week just to wait and see. But and Amari Cooper, like I think that ship will right itself a little bit, hopefully this week.
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah, I think so. Next guys are kind of flexes at best. I'm still okay if you have to start them. Deontay is more because of Andy Dalton, but that is a little bit of an unknown. Khalil Shakir, surprisingly, has been pretty good this year. I think most people would be a little bit surprised. In half PPR, not as much. He's wide receiver 32 on the year. But in PPR, I think he's a little bit better. Wide receiver 30. I mean, he's a startable wide receiver 3 or flex guy. And then Terry McLaurin, I still put in here, but I'm starting to get a little bit concerned. I thought last week was going to be against the Giants the week, and it's just not seemingly going to happen. So do you think it's going to turn on for, Deontay and Terry are really what I want to focus on because those are the guys we drafted to be, potential starters. So you think it's all going to kind of come around and start to be like, all right, this is what we drafted them, or are you pretty concerned with Deontay and Terry McLaurin?
Yeah, I mean, McLaurin definitely is concerning. just given the pass volume in Washington. Like it's not like super valuable right now. And obviously their run game is humming with Daniels and Brian Robinson. So it's like he's the obvious number one guy with not a lot of competition, but it's not really turning into anything. So I think, I think you're definitely downgraded him correctly to a flex. The nice thing is, he has the wide receiver two upside. That we've seen in the past, but I don't know how much that really matters right now, given the coaching staff change and the quarterback change. So definitely concerning. Yeah, and Deontay, again, like I'd like to wait a week to see. Adam Thielen was the dude for yeah, I was like, why did I blank on his name all of a sudden? I was gonna say Darnold, and I was like, that's not right. Darnold was there before. Yeah, no, he was like, so I don't know what that's gonna look like. Like I'd like to throw Deontay back into my lineup, but it's looked terrible. But yeah, I think Dalton should be better. I mean, he basically has to be better. He can't be any worse than Bryce. So
yeah.
So yeah, maybe just wait a week on Deontay. I don't think you're gonna miss out on like a 30-point game if you don't start him. So just try and pivot.
Yeah, it's a good point. Good point. Like you're probably not missing out on too much.
Yeah.
Desperation flexes. Christian Kirk, I only put him in here because Buffalo's really good at preventing deep balls and leaving the middle of the field open. And I think that's how they're going to beat him. And I think Evan Ingram's out again. So, like I think if there's going to be a Christian Kirk week, this is the week. If not, he might even be cut worthy if he doesn't do anything this week. Demarcus Robinson could be the wide receiver one for Stafford. We'll see. This is desperation. Cortland Sutton is kind of a stereotypical one here. You kind of need a touchdown, and he hasn't been getting them because no rookie quarterback has thrown a touchdown yet. Jaden Reed, it sounds like Love's not going to play. I think he's questionable officially. I don't think he's going to play. And for that reason, Jaden Reed's a desperation flex. Roma Dunze, you can maybe move him up a bit, like flex at best because of the Keenan Allen injury. I wouldn't mind that. Ladd McConkey, he has one good game, one bad game. Tyler Lockett, one good game, one bad game. And then Brandon Cook's kind of the same. So is there one or two guys there that you like out of this group?
I mean, honestly, Lockett, I would say flex at best, basically, just because what we saw from week one. Last week he was essentially irrelevant with the JSN and Metcalf games. Yeah, so, but he was the dude in week one. Not that it really like turned out like super great, but 6 for 77. I'll take that in my flex, especially in PPR.
Yeah, for sure.
But Dunze, I definitely want to keep him on the bench, just given like the poor quarterback play we're seeing. Keenan Allen didn't play last week either, right? And he was 2 for 33. So
yeah.
I don't know. Sure. I just don't think there's anything going on there. I'm not saying like you're dropping him necessarily or anything like that, but he's definitely, you're just going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait with him until Caleb starts figuring it out. And that's probably going to take a while, I wouldn't expect it to be super relevant this season. Go ahead.
Yeah, I will say Tennessee and Houston have really good defenses, in my opinion. So keep that in mind when you're judging Caleb Williams a little bit. Like those are probably maybe like we could be looking back in 3-4 weeks, two of the top defenses we want to try and avoid. So, I just wanted to throw that out there with that. But I agree. I don't want to start a Dunze unless I'm like just absolutely desperate. It's been 2 weeks. Yeah. 2 weeks in a row where these guys, Jerry Jeudy caught a touchdown week 1 and went 5 for 73 in week 2. Alec Pierce has touchdowns in back-to-back games. Gabe Davis, this is a little bit of a reach for Gabe Davis. By the way, I think Alec Pierce is like wide receiver 9 on the year. Gabe Davis, it's a little bit of a reach, but I think he led the Jags in yards and targets last week. Yards week 1 and targets this week. So I don't know. Is there one of these guys like you would, if you had to buy into one of them, you'd choose that's who I'm buying into?
I mean, if Josh Downs misses another game, I think Alec Pierce moves into that desperation flex pretty well. You know, like he's on the field and he's connecting with Richardson better than Pittman is. You know, it's like somehow Richardson's better at throwing the ball further down the field than like the little dump off stuff, which is just weird. So I would throw him in there. Yeah, I don't know. Jerry Jeudy, like, I don't really mind that either. Gabe Davis, I don't know. I think I'm just like holding his career against him, you know, kind of a thing. And rightly so, you know, which his career's kind of looks similar this year so far. So it's just like, I'm not starting him.
He's not really doing anything with that. Like saying that he's been leading the Jags in targets and yards is not saying much. So
they look awful.
Yeah, for sure. Are you chasing week 2 guys? It's Quentin Johnson who caught 2 touchdown passes and 50 yards. Andre Yoshibas also caught 2 touchdown passes with like 7 yards total, which is kind of crazy. Darnell Mooney 3 for 88 and a touchdown. And Jalen Naylor caught a touchdown as well. And I think he had like 70 yards or something like that. 54 yards and a touchdown. If you had to choose one to chase week 2, who are you chasing out of these guys?
Oh God. I guess.
By the way, Addison's out.
Yeah, I know. I did hear that. So I don't know, man. I think Yoshi Voss is like the perfect, like if you have T. Higgins and he's available on your waiver wire, pick him up and just start him if Higgins misses, because it's the Monday night game or one of the Monday night games. I hate that shit when they have 2 Monday night games.
I know.
Especially because they overlap. It's like stagger them. What the hell?
They used to.
Yeah. I don't think the Darnell Mooney thing is real necessarily. You know, it's basically it was 3 catches, but it was really 2 catches where everything came from. So I don't know. I guess it just feels gross. I guess Quentin Johnston is who I'm chasing. Like as far as like I don't think he's going to get 2 touchdowns, but you know, I think he's going to be relevant regardless in his offense. Oh, God, this just feels gross.
No, it's fine. I want to point out with Darnell Mooney, like if we talked about like, oh well, we're throwing week 1 out the window for Drake London and Kirk Cousins. Maybe we should do the same for Darnell Mooney. Like if their offense is starting to look good and getting together, and he had a good game, maybe that's a real thing. So I think I would actually buy into Mooney the most, but I'm not expecting too much here. So
sure.
Yeah. Next guys, again, 1 week away from cutting. If you haven't cut them already, it's Jacoby Myers, DeAndre Hopkins, Adam Thielen, if he does nothing with Dalton, and Joshua Palmer, who I thought was going to be good this year and hasn't done anything. So don't need to really spend time on those guys. But yeah, I'm kind of like, oh, if I can, maybe I'll hold you for one more week, but that's it.
I think they're all basically cuts except for Thielen. It's the weird part. Like, just because Sam Darnold, or Jesus, I did it again. Andy Dalton. I think he's the most attractive one on this list, which is just fucking weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, Josh Palmer. It's like, sorry, man. Sorry. It's just not happening.
Yeah. And then I have I want to stash these guys, and to me they're really only stashes. I'm not even thinking about starting these guys. Keon Coleman, just he did nothing last week after looking okay, but it seems like Shakir's going to be the receiver there at least the beginning of the year. Christian Watson, he's just always a stash, I guess. Jalen Tolbert had 9 targets last week, so Brandon Cook's a little bit older. Number 2 wide receiver potentially. especially if Ferguson's out again. I think he might come back. Xavier Leggett or Leggett, I forget how to say it exactly, but same reasons why we're a little bit higher on Thielen and Deontay Johnson, because like, what if Xavier Leggett's the guy and he's a rookie and exciting? And then Jordan Whittington, I feel like I have to mention his name about once every third video. So, guy I really like. He's starting to get a little bit of smoke around him, and maybe he becomes the guy for Stafford. So, are you kind of agreeing you're stashing all these guys, or if you had to cut one of these 5, is there someone you're going to cut and just move on from?
I don't know. Like, it's tough because we just went through the guys where it's like, oh yeah, I would cut these guys, but it's like, I don't know if I'm cutting them for any of these one guys necessarily. I mean, if Christian Watson was available, like I would definitely like keep him. Tolbert, I'm not buying it, honestly. Like, it's just like I need to see it for a few more weeks, and then it'll probably be too late for me. Like, just given like what he's done before or previously, and yeah, I don't know, man. This is a tough group.
Yeah, there's stashes for a reason. Like, if you can't stash them, you don't. Basically,
right? Yeah, I mean,
they're just all. They're all guys that like I could see the path for them. Like, we're talking about them as like flexes and things like that. So, a couple rookies, a couple guys on good offenses, a couple guys that could be the number 1 targets or something like that. So,
sure.
If you can, type of thing. And then the last tier was guys that are injured. Keenan Allen's obviously out, so we're not going to talk about him. T. Higgins, if he plays, where are we putting T. Higgins against the Washington Commanders? I'm trying to look up T. Higgins. Don't have the Friday stuff because they play on Monday, right?
Yeah.
So limited practice. Let's just say you get news that he's playing on Saturday. We hear that he's going to play. Where are you putting him? Flex at best, boom bust, 3 wide receiver.
Yeah, right in there. 3 wide receiver, 3 wide receiver, 12 team is where I'm sticking him.
I agree with that.
I definitely think the team needs him.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
throw him out there. But again, get Yoshi Boss if you have Higgins, and then just
if you're relying on him for sure. Yeah. Any quarterbacks like outside the top 12 or so we want to look at? I mean, Derek Carr is outside the top 12. He might be a good one to choose there. Or still Justin Fields, guy, I like the rushing floor. So don't mind that. I know.
Quarterback 2, Derek Carr?
Yeah. I mean, he's QB 14 listed. So, anyone necessarily that you like there? Or,
I mean, yeah, I like Carr.
Okay.
I mean, not
Baker wonderful against Denver too.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, not that I love Baker, because he's keeping my team relevant for sure.
Yeah.
But I think I would start Carr over Baker, which is just weird to say. But I mean, just keep going until just keep going with it. Like he's got Kamara and he's got Olave. But yeah, no, I'll start Carr over Baker. I would have started them over either one of those guys over Aaron Rodgers last night, and that would have been a mistake.
Yeah, well, maybe. We don't know yet for sure. Yeah. And then, tight end, anyone like Colby Parkinson, I think is an interesting one again. Bad matchup, but could be the main guy for the Rams. Any tight end you want to highlight that's kind of outside that top 12 or so? Jonnu, buying into Jonnu.
Just pulling it up. No, definitely not. What the hell? Oh yeah, I read this as Greg Dortch. Oh, on the tight end list. I'm like, why is he there? Taysom Hill, because Juwan Jennings is gonna miss. No, I don't know if he actually is. Ferguson. What's that?
I think Taysom Hill might miss the game.
Yeah, he's questionable right now. I'm not actually ever going to recommend him as a tight end. Really, I mean, like he's one of those guys. Like you could definitely start him as your tight end, but whatever. Only if he's dual eligible. Are you ever starting him? God, this list
You said
is
Fergie?
terrible. Yeah, I mean
Ferguson?
Ferguson. If he plays, but I feel like he's kind of a cheat.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, well, if he's playing, you're definitely starting him.
Yeah.
Let's go with. Jeez, Johnny. Yeah, I guess Johnny. No, like I don't know.
I don't hate it. Like if there's going to be a lot of short area targets, like
yeah, I know.
Thompson
That's what I was
pretty
thinking. Like, I guess, man. I mean, Gesicki could be interesting again this week, especially if T. Higgins misses, but you're not going to know that, you know.
Yeah.
Streamer at best.
Yeah, it's tough in the tight end streets for sure. But that is week 3 for you. We will be back with week 4, and hopefully things are not as bad and dire. Bye weeks are coming up on top of the injuries, so get ready for all of that.
I have a suggestion, 5. Mike, and maybe you can. Sorry, are you still going?
Yeah, yeah. You want me to end the video? Is that what you're saying?
No. I was gonna say I have a suggestion where you should tell people where they can like ask us start-sit questions, and then maybe we can answer some of those on these videos, like to make it a little more kind of relevant to our audience here.
Yeah, I mean, you can always leave comments on whatever video you want that we put out. You can join the Discord, which is in the links in the description of the video, or you can just shoot an email as well if you want to do it kind of the old school way. Email is in, if you go to the page, our page, you'll find it in like the description of our page, the email there. So
yeah, well, I meant if they ask a start-sit question and that they want like that we can pick some to like answer on the video, you know, they can't do it in the comments for the video. I mean, they could do it there obviously afterwards, but I was just thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I meant earlier videos as well. If you have start-sit, like ones that we post throughout the week, and all of that. But yeah, I mean, is there a specific place you're thinking of that I'm missing, or
no? I think you nailed it. I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, email or Discord and stuff. Yeah, email or Discord and all that. So, yeah, and we will wrap it up. Anything else you want to say before we finish it up?
Start Pat Freiermuth.
Sure. Start Pat Freiermuth. But yeah, we'll be back next week talking about week 4. So appreciate everyone watching, and we will see you all then.